Welcome to the Deep Dive. We talk a lot on this show about learning and how to learn better. And today, we're diving into something that's absolutely crucial to that whole process. Curiosity.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And you, our amazing listeners, you sent in a ton of really fascinating research on this. We are so excited to dig into it with you today.
Absolutely.
So we're going to be focusing in on really what curiosity means, how we define it, how it works, especially thinking about the world of education.
Yeah, and I think that's really important. We really want to disentangle all the different aspects of curiosity, and particularly how it kind of relates to another concept that we often talk about, which is interest. So how do these two kind of work together? How are they different?
Yeah, that's a great point.
And we're going to be drawing heavily on a really insightful 2016 paper by Emily Grossnickel called Disentangling Curiosity, Dimensionality, Definitions, and Distinctions from Interest in Educational Contexts.
Wow, what a title.
It's a mouthful, but it's a great paper.
It is a mouthful, but it gets right to the point, which I think is a good sign. And one of the things that this research points out right from the beginning is, we all sort of have this intuitive feeling about what curiosity is.
Right.
But scientifically, our understanding of it has been kind of all over the place.
It's a messy concept. There are a lot of different ways to think about it, and the definitions haven't always been consistent. And yeah, it does get mixed up with interest a lot, so trying to pull those apart, I think, is a really important goal.
Yeah, absolutely. And you might be thinking, okay, well, why should I care about all this definitional stuff?
Right. Who cares?
But here's the thing. Understanding curiosity, it's not just some academic exercise,
No.
The research very clearly shows that curiosity is linked to some pretty incredible benefits when it comes to learning. We're talking about things like better memory,
Oh, wow.
higher academic performance, asking more like insightful questions, and just being more persistent, sticking with challenging material.
Right. And even like that willingness to really put in the time and effort to learn something new, to really invest your resources, whether that's time, energy, attention, all of those things, into really understanding something new.
Exactly. And so for all of our listeners out there who are clearly really invested in learning, I mean, you're listening to this podcast.
You're here.
You sent us all this research.
You're curious.
That's right. So those potential benefits, like remembering information better, being able to really grasp complex ideas, that's got to be valuable to you.
Definitely.
It's not just about being a curious person. It's about like what that curiosity can actually do for you as a learner.
Yeah, it has real world impact on how we learn and what we're able to achieve.
And, the research also highlights that it's not just about your own personal level of curiosity.
Right.
It's also about that environment.
Context.
How that interacts with your curiosity to affect your learning, how well you do in school, all that. So let's get into it.
Right. Let's dive in.
When researchers try to define curiosity, like what are some of the different ways that they think about it?
Okay, well, this is where it gets really interesting, right? Because as we said, it's not a simple concept. It's not just one thing. And different theories have emerged over time that really try to explain where curiosity comes from and what it's all about. So we've got, for instance, drive reduction theories. And these see curiosity as almost like a kind of tension or a drive that we have to reduce. And we reduce that by seeking information. So it's like, oh, I have this gap in my knowledge. I don't know something. It creates this tension, and I'm driven to find out the answer.
Like an itch you have to scratch.
Yeah, exactly. It's like this need.
Yeah.
Then you have optimal arousal theories. And these suggest that, well, maybe we're not just trying to reduce tension. Maybe we're actually seeking out a certain level of stimulation, that kind of like just right level of novelty and complexity that really engages us.
So like finding that sweet spot between being bored and being overwhelmed.
Exactly. Enough novelty to keep us interested, but not so much that it's just like too much and we shut down.
Yeah, yeah. It's like in a game, finding that level of challenge where you're like really engaged, but not so hard that you just give up.
That's a perfect analogy. And then you've got knowledge gap models, right? And this is maybe a little more intuitive. These propose that curiosity arises when we become aware of a gap in our knowledge, in our understanding. So it's not just about novelty or stimulation. It's about like, oh, I realize there's something I don't know.
Okay.
And that makes me want to find out more.
So it's like, I know what I know, but now I'm aware of what I don't know.
Exactly. And then there are these kind of newer approaches called dynamic subsystem regulation.
Okay.
And this is where it gets a little more complex. But essentially, they see curiosity as a more spontaneous and kind of even unconscious response to certain types of information.
Okay, so more automatic.
Yeah, more automatic. Like we encounter something new or unexpected, and our system, like our brain and our attention, just kind of like automatically orients towards it.
That's really interesting. So it sounds like there's not just one right answer to the question of, like, what is curiosity and where does it come from?
Right. There are all these different perspectives, and they each kind of shed light on a different aspect of this really complex thing.
Yeah. And this idea that curiosity has multiple sides to it, it's not even new. If you think
Hmm.
back to, like, John Dewey, William James,
The classics.
yeah, the classics, they were already talking about curiosity as this, like, multidimensional thing.
Yeah, it's not a new idea at all.
Yeah.
But, it's one that we're still kind of grappling with today and trying to like really get a handle on.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense, though, that something as complex as human curiosity wouldn't fit neatly into one little box.
Exactly. And so the researchers behind this paper, they kind of took all of these different perspectives into account, and they kind of tried to like distill it down into a more general working definition.
Okay, so what is their definition? What's their take on it?
Okay, so their working definition of curiosity is that it's the desire for new knowledge,
Okay.
information, experiences, or even just stimulation, and that this desire is driven by either a need to fill those gaps in our understanding or just to experience something unfamiliar.
Okay, so that core drive to explore the unknown.
Exactly. Whether we're looking for answers or just looking for something new and exciting.
But then within that, there are different types of curiosity,
Oh, absolutely.
right? Like, what is our curiosity actually directed towards?
Yeah, and Dewey actually, going back to him, he talked about different types of curiosity based on what it's directed towards.
Hmm.
So he talked about physical curiosity, social curiosity, and intellectual curiosity. And he actually suggested that, children kind of go through these stages as they develop. So physical curiosity, that's like early on, it's exploring the world through your senses, through touch and movement.
Like babies putting everything in their mouth?
Exactly. Like, what is this thing? What does it feel like?
Yeah.
Then social curiosity kind of emerges as language develops. And that's all about like asking why and wanting to learn from other people.
Okay.
And then, finally you get to intellectual curiosity,
Yeah.
which today we often call epistemic curiosity.
Okay.
And that's that deep desire to understand concepts,
Like
to solve problems,
Yeah.
to really kind of like grapple with ideas. And that, I think, for educators, that's the kind of curiosity that we're really interested in fostering, right? Because that's what drives deep learning.
Right. That thirst for knowledge itself.
Exactly.
And it's so fascinating how those early developmental stages seem to, like, lay the foundation.
Yeah, it's like a progression.
They build up to that more, like, intellectual curiosity that we're really aiming for in education. It makes you wonder, like, how can we as educators, how can we nurture that progression? How can we, make sure that those early forms of curiosity kind of blossom into that love of learning?
That's a great question, and I think it really highlights the importance of creating environments that allow for exploration,
Right.
that encourage kids to ask questions, to experiment, to be curious about the world around them. Because as you said, those early experiences really do shape how curiosity develops later on.
Yeah, absolutely. And, so that's like the object of our curiosity, right?
Yeah.
Like what it's focused on. But then there are other ways to kind of break down curiosity into different types,
Oh,
right?
yeah, for sure. So you've got things like breadth versus depth, which is like, are you someone who's curious about lots of different things? You're always kind of jumping from one topic to the next. That's breadth of curiosity. Or do you tend to like really focus on one thing and just go deep?
Okay.
Like really get into the details. That's depth of curiosity.
Got it. So breadth is more like, I want to know a little bit about a lot of things.
Yeah, exactly. Like a mile wide and an inch deep.
And depth is more like, I want to know everything about this one particular thing.
Yeah, like an inch wide and a mile deep. And, there's no right or wrong here. People are different. Some people are naturally more broad in their curiosity. Some people are naturally more deep. And, you can kind of be both depending on the situation.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. I think it probably depends on the topic, too. Like, some things you just, like, want that surface level understanding.
Yeah.
And other things you're like, no, I need to know everything about this.
Exactly. And then, another really important distinction is state versus trait curiosity.
Okay, tell me about that one.
So state curiosity, that's like that momentary feeling of wanting to know more, it's triggered by something specific in your environment right now.
Okay.
Like you see a headline that's really intriguing and you're like, oh, I got to read that.
Okay.
Or
Yeah.
you hear someone talking about something and you're like, wait, what is that?
So it's that sudden spark.
Exactly. It's that like in the moment fleeting feeling.
Okay.
Trait curiosity, on the other hand, is more of a stable part of your personality.
Okay.
It's that underlying tendency to be curious across different situations and over time.
So like some people are just generally more curious than others.
Exactly. And, it's interesting because the research shows that there's actually a pretty strong relationship between state and trait curiosity. So if you're someone who's generally a curious person, you're more likely to experience those moments of state curiosity more often.
It's like the more curious you are as a person, the more things will kind of catch your attention and spark that, like, I need to know more feeling.
Yeah. Exactly. And, thinking about your own experience,
Yeah.
do you find that you're like easily intrigued by things? Are you always asking questions?
Um, I think, you know, I can definitely relate to that state curiosity. Like I was just thinking about this the other day. I saw a headline about something, some scientific discovery, and I knew nothing about it.
Right.
And I was like, I have to click on this right now.
Yeah, that's that state curiosity kicking in.
But yeah, my like general tendency to like always be seeking out new scientific information is probably lower.
Okay.
That's more of a trait thing, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense. And, we all have our own kind of like curiosity profile,
Yeah.
right? Some things spark our curiosity more than others. And, that's totally fine. That's what makes us unique.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got what our curiosity is directed towards, and then we've got the like breadth versus depth and the state versus trait. What other ways are there to kind of break down curiosity?
Okay, so we can also think about the reason behind our curiosity, like what's motivating us to be curious.
Okay.
So we can distinguish between what's called specific curiosity and what's called diversive curiosity.
Okay, tell me about those.
So specific curiosity is when you have a particular question in mind
Okay.
and you're actively seeking the answer to reduce that specific uncertainty.
Okay.
So it's like, you're doing a crossword puzzle.
Yeah.
And you're like, what's a 5-letter word for, a type of bird?
Yeah.
You have this specific gap in your knowledge and you're driven to fill it.
Okay.
Diversive curiosity, on the other hand, is more about seeking out novelty and new experiences just to increase your stimulation, to reduce boredom, to kind of like expand your horizons.
Ah, okay. So specific is like, I need to know the answer to this particular question, and diversive is more like, I just want to see what's out there.
Exactly. So it's like, browsing through different articles online or, going to a museum and just kind of wandering around and seeing what catches your eye. It's more about like exploration for the sake of exploration.
Okay.
And then we can also distinguish between what's called interest-type curiosity or I-type curiosity
Okay.
and deprivation-type curiosity or D-type curiosity.
Oh, wow. Lots of types here.
Yeah, there's a lot, but they're all really interesting, and I think they can help us understand our own curiosity better.
Okay.
So I-type curiosity, this is like that joyful feeling of wanting to learn something new because it's just exciting and enjoyable.
Okay.
You see those knowledge gaps as opportunities for fun and discovery. So you're
Yeah.
like, I don't know that. That's cool. I want to learn more.
Like a sense of wonder.
Exactly.
Okay.
D-type curiosity, however, is driven by a desire to get rid of that feeling of not knowing.
Okay.
So it can actually start with a bit of discomfort, like that sense of like, "Ooh, I don't know this. I feel ignorant."
So it's more of a negative feeling that drives you.
Yeah, initially at least. But then the satisfaction comes from filling that gap, from resolving that uncertainty.
So you're motivated to get rid of that, like,
Yeah.
icky feeling of not knowing.
Exactly. And, thinking about our listeners, like when you realize you don't know something, think about how that makes you feel. Does it make you feel excited? Does it make you feel kind of uncomfortable?
Yeah.
That can actually give you a clue as to like which type of curiosity might be more dominant for you in that situation.
That's really interesting. So it's not just about wanting to know, it's about how that desire feels.
Exactly. It's about the emotional experience of curiosity.
Right.
And the research actually supports that these two types have different connections to like other aspects of our psychology. So for instance, D-type curiosity has been linked to higher levels of anxiety and a stronger need for closure, like a need to have answers quickly.
Okay.
I-type curiosity, on the other hand, tends to be associated with greater tolerance for uncertainty and a more kind of positive, growth-oriented approach to learning. You know, you're more comfortable with not knowing, and you're okay with the process of figuring things out.
Yeah.
And that tip of the tongue phenomenon, we've
Right.
all experienced that, you know, and you're like, I know this word, it's on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah.
That's been linked specifically to D-type curiosity. It's like that feeling of almost knowing creates this really strong urge to resolve that gap, to find that word.
It's so frustrating.
It is so frustrating, and it really highlights how, like, that need to reduce uncertainty, to fill that knowledge gap is really driving that experience.
Okay. So we've got all these different dimensions of curiosity, and, you know, they can all be kind of happening at the same time, influencing each other.
Absolutely. It's not like you're just one type or you're just experiencing one dimension. You know, these things are all interacting in really complex ways.
Yeah. So you could be someone who, like, you have a high level of, like, trait epistemic curiosity. You're just generally a curious person who loves to learn.
Hmm.
But then, you know, you could also be experiencing a state of specific curiosity about, like, a particular historical event
Yeah,
because you're reading a book about it.
right.
And then, you know, you might be driven by an I-type motivation because you genuinely love history and you find it fascinating.
Exactly. And those things can all be happening at the same time, shaping your experience of curiosity in that moment.
Yeah, so it's like all these layers.
Yeah, it's very multi-layered.
Okay. So we've broken down all these different facets of what curiosity can be,
Hmm.
like what it looks like, how it feels, what drives it. But then this research you sent also looked at how scientific studies have actually been defining curiosity.
Right, because, you know, as we were talking about earlier, it can be kind of messy.
Yeah.
Like, researchers aren't always on the same page about, like, what they even mean by curiosity.
Right. And if we want to really understand something, we have to agree on what we're even talking about.
Exactly. So this paper actually did a systematic review of a bunch of research studies that were published between 2003 and 2013.
Okay.
And they looked at, like, how did these researchers explicitly define curiosity in their studies? And they found 4 recurring themes in those definitions.
Okay, what were the themes?
Okay, so the most common one, which appeared in about 2/3 of the definitions they looked at, was this idea of curiosity as a need for knowledge or information.
Okay, so like wanting to know more.
Yeah, exactly, like a drive to acquire knowledge.
Yeah.
The second most frequent theme was defining curiosity as something that drives exploratory behavior.
Okay.
So it's not just about wanting to know, it's about, like, actually taking action, you know, exploring, investigating, seeking out information.
Right.
The third theme was curiosity's connection to what are called collative variables.
Okay, now you're just using big words.
I know, but it's actually a really simple idea. So collative variables are those things that kind of, like, pique our interest and make us want to know more. They're things like novelty, complexity, ambiguity, and uncertainty.
Okay, so like the things that make something interesting or intriguing.
Exactly. So, you know, if something is new or complex, we're more likely to be curious about it.
Okay.
And then finally, some definitions focused on the emotions or the arousal that accompany curiosity.
Right.
And often these are positive emotions.
Okay.
So it's like curiosity is not just a cognitive thing, it's
Right.
also an emotional thing. It feels good to be curious.
Yeah, there's that like excitement, that sense of wonder.
Exactly. So those were the 4 big themes that they found in the research definitions.
Okay. So when researchers actually sat down and wrote out, like, here's how we're defining curiosity for this study,
Mm-hmm.
those 4 ideas kept coming up. Could you give me an example of each one?
Yeah, absolutely. So for need for knowledge, one of the studies that they cited just straight up defined curiosity as the desire for new knowledge or experience.
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah, nice and simple.
Okay.
For exploratory behavior, there was a definition that said, curiosity is what motivates individuals to learn new ideas, eliminate information gaps, and solve intellectual problems.
Okay, so more action-oriented.
Yeah, it's about that active process of seeking and exploring.
Okay.
And for collative variables, one of the definitions was that curiosity arises from the recognition, pursuit, and intense desire to investigate uncertainty.
Ooh, I like that one.
Yeah, it's a good one. It really captures that, like, pull towards the unknown.
Yeah.
And then for emotions or arousal, one of the definitions included a desire for new information aroused by novel, complex, or ambiguous stimuli.
Okay, so it's like those cognitive wearables,
Yeah,
they trigger that emotional response.
exactly. They kind of kickstart the whole curiosity process.
Okay. And were most of the studies actually like explicitly defining curiosity?
That's a really important point because surprisingly, a significant chunk of the studies that they reviewed, like about a third, didn't provide any explicit definition at all.
Really?
Yeah. They just kind of like assumed that everyone was on the same page about what curiosity meant.
That seems kind of risky, though.
It is. It really kind of like underscores that lack of consistent understanding that we were talking about before.
Yeah, it's like if you're trying to study something, you've got to be clear about what it is you're studying.
Exactly. And so, the authors of this paper, they took all of these themes that they identified
Hmm.
and they kind of like put them together to create a revised definition of curiosity.
Okay, so what's their more complete definition?
Okay, so they suggest defining curiosity as the desire for knowledge or information in response to experiencing or seeking out qualitative variables accompanied by positive emotions, increased arousal, or exploratory behavior.
Okay, wow. That was wow.
Yeah, it's a mouthful.
It's a lot to unpack.
It is, but it's a really good definition because it really tries to capture all of those key elements.
Right, so it's got the desire to know,
Hmm.
it's got that trigger of novelty and uncertainty,
Hmm.
it's got the feelings involved,
Mhm.
and the actions that we take.
Exactly. It's like a holistic view of curiosity.
Yeah.
And it's specifically emphasizing that in educational settings, the primary focus is on epistemic curiosity,
Okay.
that drive for knowledge and understanding.
Right, so not just, like, wanting to know what's behind the door,
Yeah,
but wanting to know, like, how things work, why things are the way they are.
exactly.
Those deeper questions.
Yeah, the questions that really drive learning.
Okay. So we've got this nice, comprehensive definition now.
Hmm.
But how do researchers actually go about measuring curiosity? I mean, it's not like you can just, like, look at someone and be like, oh, yeah, you're definitely curious.
Right. It's not something that's directly observable. And so, one of the things that the research highlights is that most of what we know about curiosity comes from how we operationally define it through measurement.
Okay.
So basically, it's like we figure out how to measure it, and then that tells us what it is.
Okay.
So the dominant approach in a lot of the studies that they looked at was to use self-report measures of trait curiosity.
Okay. So, like, questionnaires.
Exactly. So
Mm.
basically, you give people questionnaires and you ask them to rate themselves on how curious they are.
Okay. So you're relying on people to, like, accurately assess their own curiosity levels.
Right. And, there's some limitations to that for sure.
Yeah.
But it's a common way to measure curiosity. And these self-report measures, they're often trying to tap into that general tendency to seek out new experiences and to enjoy exploring new ideas.
Okay.
So they'll ask questions like, do you enjoy trying new things?
Mhm.
Are you easily bored? Do you like to learn new things?
Oh.
And then, based on people's answer, they kind of create a score of like how curious they are.
Okay. So what are some of the, like, questionnaires or scales that researchers use?
Okay, so some of the commonly used ones are the State Trait Personality Inventory, or STPI, and that's often used to kind of get a sense of someone's general levels of both curiosity and anxiety.
Okay.
There's the Curiosity and Exploration Inventory,
Okay.
or CEI, and that's specifically designed to assess someone's overall tendency towards exploration and curiosity.
Okay.
And there's a revised version of that, the CEI-2. There's also the Curiosity Interest in the World Scale, the Ontario Test of Intrinsic Motivation, and the Melbourne Curiosity Inventory.
Yep.
So those are just a few examples. But they all kind of aim to measure that more stable underlying aspect of curiosity, like how curious of a person are you generally.
Got it. So they're mostly focused on trait curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
Do any of them also, like, look at that intellectual or academic kind of curiosity?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So there are some scales that are specifically designed for that. So, for
Mhm.
example, there's the Academic Curiosity Scale.
Right.
There are subscales within the Motivation for Reading Questionnaire,
Correct.
the Battery of Effective Outcomes of Schooling Scales, the Typical Intellectual Engagement Scale,
Okay.
and the Intrinsic versus Extrinsic Orientation in the Classroom Scale.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Mm.
And these tend to focus more specifically on curiosity within the context of learning and academics. So they'll ask questions like, do you enjoy learning new things in school? Are you curious about the subjects that you're studying?
Okay.
So they're really trying to get at that like academic side of curiosity.
Right. So not just curiosity about the world in general,
Mhm.
but specifically about, like, learning and school.
Exactly. And, those can be really valuable tools for educators because they can help us understand, like, how curious are our students?
Yeah.
And how can we foster that curiosity in the classroom?
Right. Okay. So that's trait curiosity. But what about, like, measuring that, more fleeting, in-the-moment state curiosity? How do researchers do that?
That's a little trickier. Researchers will often use single item self-report questions.
Okay.
So, like, they might ask participants, how much do you want to know the answer to this trivia question?
Okay.
Or how much do you want to see what's hidden behind this curtain?
Okay.
So it's like a very specific, in-the-moment measure of curiosity.
Okay.
And some studies have actually used trivia questions and then measured how willing people are to, like, spend time or effort to find out the answers.
Okay.
So, like, are they willing to, like, read a long article? Or are they willing to, do a puzzle or something to get the answer?
So it's like a behavioral measure of their curiosity.
Exactly. It's like, how much are you willing to invest to satisfy your curiosity?
Yeah. What's it worth to you?
Right. And there have also been some studies that have looked at curiosity during actual learning activities, like research projects or reading. And they'll use things like interviews with the participants, or they'll have participants keep journals.
Okay.
Or they'll use questionnaires specifically designed to assess curiosity about the task at hand.
Okay.
But one of the things that the researchers who wrote this paper noted was that they didn't see a lot of studies using the state forms of those general trait questionnaires.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So, like, taking those questionnaires that we talked about before, like the CEI
Mm-hmm.
and